He couldn't speak a single word, but just 90 days into his job as a receptionist, the entire company stood up and applauded, and the CEO, who once opposed his hiring, stood quietly in the corner, tears streaming down his face. From that moment on, no one ever looked at him the same way again. This is Mason, mute, a receptionist, and the man who changed an entire financial empire without saying a single word. On Mason's first day, no one in the company thought he'd last. A man in his 30s, tall, slim, wearing a perfectly pressed white shirt, entered carrying a wooden nameplate. It bore a single line: "Mason, I can't speak, but I always listen." The office went quiet when they saw him. Someone whispered, "A receptionist who can't talk?" But Mason just smiled, bowed slightly, and sat at the front desk, as if he had belonged there for years. During the first week, Mason made a mistake. A major client came to visit. Unable to hear them calling from behind, Mason left them waiting nearly 3 minutes. When he realized, he rushed over and bowed deeply, apologizing with his hands and eyes. Behind him, a senior employee muttered, "He can't talk, fine, but he can't hear either?" Hiring like this just hurts the company. Mason didn't react. He simply wiped up the spilled water on the desk. The next morning, no one noticed, but all the conference room glasses had been replaced with spill-proof lids. Without being asked, Mason memorized each employee's preferences. He always had drinks ready just the way people liked them. Emma from legal always had green tea. He left a fresh tea bag every morning. The forgetful intern who never wore his badge. Mason stuck a small note inside his drawer. "Don't forget to prove you belong here." Every morning, Mason left a tiny note on the front desk. Just a colored pencil sketch. One day, it was a cat curled inside a box. Another is a paper plane flying through rain. Once, a small tree shading someone sleeping at its base. No one knew what they meant. Strangely, the office felt a little lighter on the days those drawings appeared. One day, Mason left a drawing of a whale. That same morning, the finance director took sudden personal leave, the first time in 7 years. One afternoon, a little girl came in with her mother to pick up notarized documents. Bored, she began scribbling on the waiting room table. Mason didn't say a word, just gently pushed a box of colored pencils toward her. The girl smiled. A while later, she handed him a drawing. A figure standing alone in the rain, a tiny umbrella above them held up by balloons, with a scrawled message, "Can you smile?" Mason didn't cry, and he didn't smile. He simply placed his hand over his heart and bowed in thanks, eyes still and deep, like a lake stirred by passing wind. The little girl laughed. "Mommy, the receptionist, can't talk, but he knows how to fly." One evening, the LED system malfunctioned. Room name signs blinked chaotically across the lobby. Tech support hadn't arrived yet. Mason didn't say anything. He climbed the ladder, checked the power lines, and carefully untangled a knotted wire. All the lights returned to normal within 5 minutes. No one understood how. Mason had no technical training. CEO Reed happened to walk by. He paused for 3 seconds. He didn't speak. He didn't walk away immediately. He simply gave a slight nod, a gesture no one had ever seen from him before. That night, another sketch appeared on the front desk. Just one drawing. A lone figure standing beneath thousands of hanging LED lights, but above their head was a light of their own, shining from nowhere. 10 days after Mason started his job, CEO Reed began receiving unusual emails, no complaints, but praise. One executive assistant wrote, "Mr. Reed, I don't know who hired Mason, but somehow, within just a few days, I feel like I can breathe easier every time I walk into the office." An employee from operations added, "He doesn't have to say anything, but I no longer feel judged when I pass the front desk like I used to." There was even a handwritten letter from an old client, one who had stopped working with the company in 2022. "I used to think your office was too cold, but this time, it felt like I walked into a place still with people." Reed frowned, not in anger, but because he disliked what he couldn't control. He didn't hate Mason. What he hated was what Mason revealed. Reed had spent a lifetime building his philosophy. Emotion is a liability. The only thing worth keeping is logic and performance. Mason didn't break any rules. Never late, never out of line. But his silent presence was quietly bending the order Reed had spent 15 years building. In a closed-door meeting with department heads, CEO Reed spoke directly. "The reception area feels too soft. This is a warship, not a bakery. I need someone who can speak. Handle clients instantly, make a professional impression." One manager gently replied, "But sir, clients seem to like him." Reed said nothing. No argument, just a quiet nod, the kind that meant his mind was made up. The next day, Mason received an official notice. "Due to a brand repositioning initiative, your role will be reassigned to warehouse logistics. Your salary remains unchanged, but reception duties will cease starting next week." No one said a word. Some company employees felt something was off, but no one spoke up. That afternoon, Mason remained at his desk. As always, he left behind a small note. No sketch this time. Just a single handwritten line, shaky but strangely beautiful, as if written with light. "I don't know if I ever bothered anyone. But if I ever made even one of you breathe easier, that would be the warmest thing I've ever known." An intern read it, broke down in tears, took a photo of the note and posted it online with the caption, "The mute receptionist got reassigned for being too warm." 6 hours later, that post had 28,000 shares. The note Mason left, that scribbled, quietly powerful message, didn't stay at the front desk. It didn't stay on the ground floor. It didn't even stay inside the 32-story building. It spread online. People shared it, commented, cried, and got angry. Within 12 hours, the hashtag The Silent Receptionist hit the top 3 national trending topics. One Twitter user wrote, "I've been to that building." He didn't speak, but that nod and those eyes calmed me down after a terrible interview. Another wrote, "The mute receptionist was the only one who looked at me like I wasn't just a low-level employee." Then the media picked it up. Morning Slate ran the headline, "When a mute man taught an entire company what compassion looks like." New York Daily wrote, "CEO removes silent receptionist. Community responds, so there's no room for warmth in corporations now." CEO Reed was caught off guard. He didn't use social media, but by the next morning he had 13 emails from business partners, 7 calls from the board of directors, and 2 clients canceling CSR sponsorships, all for the same reason. "We're concerned your company's philosophy lacks humanity." In an emergency meeting, the head of legal sighed and said, "We didn't break any laws, but we're now being seen as a company with no heart." Meanwhile, Mason showed up on time every day. Not at the reception desk, but in the warehouse, organizing inventory, no complaints, no statements, no posts, no stories, just those eyes, like windows into others, without ever needing to reflect himself. 1 week later, CEO Reed walked down to the warehouse for the first time in 8 years. He stopped in front of Mason. No one said a word. Reed spoke, for the first time without his usual air of authority. Just a man who'd realized he'd stood on the wrong side of his company's story. "I was wrong. Not because the media said so, but because I've never seen anyone quite a room like you do." Mason didn't reply, just gave a slight nod. Reed held out a new badge, not for receptionist, not for warehouse staff. It read, Human Connection Liaison, Department of Workplace Inspiration. A title that had never existed, a position no one had ever held, and Mason was the first to wear it. Not because he was a great speaker, but because he listened to how he lived. Mason returned to the front desk. No announcement, no ribbon cutting, no internal memo. Just one morning, the elevator doors opened, and there he was, sitting at the desk, as if he had never left. Same gray shirt, same worn black shoes, same eyes, still gentle, but now with a quiet, undeniable pride. That morning, the company lobby felt strangely still. No hurried footsteps, no beeping keycards, no one spoke. They just slowed down and looked at him. A marketing employee walked over and placed a cup of ginger tea on the desk. No name is attached. A software engineer left behind a small photo, a candid shot of Mason smiling quietly under a tree after helping her fix her bike in the rain. One person, then two, then 10. By 9:12 a.m., 76 people stood silently in the lobby before the front desk. No signs, no chants, just quiet presence, to welcome back someone who had never truly left them. On the 12th floor, CEO Reed watched through the security feed. He didn't see a protest. He saw something he'd never seen in his entire career. A crowd with no voice, yet one message. He left the board meeting. Mid-sentence. No explanation. Took the elevator down. When the doors opened, every eye turned to him. No one spoke, no one clapped. He strolled toward Mason, the only one who didn't turn around. Reed bowed, fully, and gently placed a folder on the desk. The cover bore the company logo. Beneath it, the title, Deaf Hiring Initiative, led by Mason. His voice was slow but steady. It took me a long time to understand. Some things don't need sound to echo far. Mason looked at him, then at everyone. No tears, no dramatic gesture, just stood up and bowed. And at that moment, the entire lobby rose to their feet and clapped. No one shouted. No one called his name. Just applause like soft rain breaking a long silent drought. Gentle, but overwhelming. From that day forward, the company was never the same. Not because of media, not because of reputation, but because people began to see each other honestly. A janitor was called by her name instead of being passed by like a shadow. A longtime employee, once labeled outdated, was now asked to mentor the new hires. An intern, once trembling because he couldn't speak fluent English, now received gentle handwritten email replies from Mason, each word carefully formed, as if every letter carried something unspoken. Mason wasn't famous. He didn't give speeches. He didn't appear on television. But he became something more powerful, a quiet nod inside many hearts. I'm not alone. I can be kind even if I'm not perfect. I can help make the world better without saying much at all. One day, a little girl was brought to the lobby, the daughter of a technical manager. She drew a picture, a man wearing a name tag that said Mason, sitting behind the front desk with wings on his back. Underneath, she scrawled, "Can you fly? If not, it's okay, because I think you help other people fly." No one read that line without smiling. A quiet smile, soft, real, and just a little wet around the eyes. A photo of that drawing went viral, captioned, "A man who said nothing, but made a whole company rise to its feet." If you've ever met someone quiet but kind, someone who didn't say much but made you feel seen, tell us about them in the comments. We don't always know where they are now, but maybe, just maybe, They need to be reminded they were never invisible. If you want to hear more stories like this, stories that leave you silent, but more alive than ever, hit subscribe. Because sometimes the most powerful things we hear come from those who never say a word.